Welcome to Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show, where we discuss all things political, bringing you the top stories locally, nationally, and from around the world. I'm Ruben Abati, and Thisday Live begins now. Coming up in the next hour, Splinter group with the name New Nigerian Bar Association emerges from the Nigerian Bar Association conference. President Muhammadu Buhari unveils 9 areas of development his administration will prioritize in the next 3 years, assuring Nigerians and the international community of improved access to quality education, healthcare, and enhanced productivity. And Technicality receives heavy backlash from Nigerians for calling a journalist stupid. The latter tenders an apology for his actions. The 60th Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, opened on Wednesday with the theme, Step Forward. President of the NBA, Paul Usoro, as he then was, in his opening remarks, stated that beyond the event marking the Diamond Jubilee of the NBA conferences, there is quite a lot to celebrate. In particular, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association mentioned the need to celebrate a united bar, noting that though there are people that would like to divide the association, but the NBA will remain united. But when we wonder, is there really a lot to celebrate? It should be recalled that the conference was preceded by controversies, including the threat to boycott the annual general conference by several state branches of the association. This as a result of disagreement over the invitation and the disinvitation of the Kaduna State government, Nasir El-Rufai, who had been originally invited as one of the speakers at the conference. Now, the former Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, during a visit to Governor El-Rufai last Sunday, stated that the association lost the opportunity to interrogate the governor and collectively rub minds to identify areas that need to be addressed for the purpose of governance. The ethno-religious controversies peaked on Friday when some lawyers of northern extraction announced that they had formed a parallel Nigerian Bar Association. The breakaway group, now known as the New Nigerian Bar Association, NNBA, said in a statement that the formation of the new NBA was aimed at protecting their interests as enshrined in Section 40 of the Nigerian Constitution. Meanwhile, on another note, President Buhari, who spoke at the 60th Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, expressed worry over what he described as the terribly slow pace of justice administration in Nigerian courts. The president is proposing that the judiciary should put a 12-month time limit on the hearing of criminal cases from the High Court to the Supreme Court, while all civil cases should be concluded within 15 months. Well, joining us now to address these matters arising from the NBA conference is AJ OWONIKOKO, a senior advocate of Nigeria and partner Synergy Attorneys. AJ OWONIKOKO, SAN, welcome to Thisday Live and thank you for joining us. Good afternoon.
Good evening, Doctor. It's my pleasure to join you again on this
thank you very much. You must have listened to my rather lengthy introduction. We've just had the 60th Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, of which you are a member, the first virtual conference in that association. But by the end of that conference, we're left with a divided bar. A group of northern extraction says that it has formed what it calls a new Nigerian Bar Association. And the two conveners of this body have already notified the Attorney General of the Federation. So after the elections of July 29, July 30, and the annual general conference and the emergence of a new president, the Nigerian Bar appears to be divided along ethnic and religious lines. How do you make sense of this? What is your reaction? What's your take? Do you think that the bar will remain divided, or this is just something that will blow away eventually?
I would rather that this is something that will blow away eventually. It's very, very disturbing and unfortunate that the bar itself has not managed its diversity well enough. Despite previous efforts and initiatives to ensure that there is a sense of belonging across various divides, it appears that a reflection of the general attitude and culture of Nigerians to democratic process has seeped into how we also run the bar. Indeed, election that went on and led to the emergence of new ESCO was a very, very controversial one. For the first time, there was an agenda to demarcate the bar based on the inner and outer bar in the course of the campaign. And that, of course, generated a lot of bad blood, which was unnecessary. I believe that with the transition now and handover to the new ESCO, they have their job well cut out. That said, I don't think that the structure and framework of how the legal practice operates in Nigeria will accommodate the emergence of any valid and recognizable splinter group. The NBA itself is actually mentioned in the Constitution of Nigeria and assigned special roles in a number of functions having to do with the justice system. It's also mentioned in the Legal Practitioners Act, apart from the fact that it is now registered as an incorporated trustee. It is very unlikely that any other association can be incorporated as a rival group to the NBA based on the requirement of CAMA that an association that has a resemblance of duplication of another's objectives may have difficulty being registered. But that does not mean that we will not recognize these tendencies. My comfort derives from the fact that under our present structure, the NBA presidency rotates around 3 axes in Nigeria. There is the south-south, there is the southwest, and there is the north. The present ESCO took over from the candidate who emerged from south-south in the person of Dr. Paul Uzoro SAN, who has just left. Olumide Akpata Esquire is of the southwestern bar because that includes Edo and Delta. And after his tenure, the office of president moves to the north. So, which is why I have a bit of a ray of hope that by the time the interests converge and the presidency is going to the north, whatever feelings need to be assuaged will probably be addressed by that opportunity. That said, the new ESCO has to carry everybody along. Iron over all the creases so that we can return back to one single bar, which is what we require now. With the challenges facing us, even as a profession, the economy has not been too friendly with lawyers. The court system are not functioning at full capacity. A majority of us live on litigation branch of practice. Once the traffic in court reduces, it has effect on our pockets. I think those should be the greater attention. Whatever problems we had with the last election, the good thing is that the new president and his entire ESCO will not rule for more than 2 years before opportunity comes for us to effect another change. Thank you.
The conveners of the new Nigerian Bar Association, they are insisting on Section 40 of the Constitution, which they say, grants them the freedom of association. And that in any case, those sections that you quoted, Section 1 of the Legal Practitioners Act and the fact that the NBA is registered with the CAC, they are saying that it's immaterial because it's not, the NBA is not an express creation of the Legal Practitioners Act. And the catalyst for their action is the controversy over the invitation and disinvitation of Nasir Rufai, governor of Kaduna State. In retrospect, do you think that that should have been handled differently, as suggested by some commentators on the matter?
Well, with due respect, when I recall the circumstances leading to the disinvitation of Malame Rufai, apart from the personal injured feelings, I think it played out very effectively the intricacies of democratic governance, where various contending forces in an association will bring their pressure to bear. The NBA invited Malam Nasir El-Rufai as a speaker at the conference. don't forget, that body that organized the conference was a technical committee. It's not the entire NBA that was saddled with the task of assembling keynote speakers and resource persons. Once the name emerged, tendencies in the association had to advocate for why it was not the appropriate speaker for the time we are in now. And that was subject to a discussion at the level of the ESCO, and a decision was taken by majority. That said, we have to respect the outcome of that. We may find a way to, apologize to the invited guest, because you may find him not too pleasant a candidate for that job today. In another 2-3 years' time, you may find that you still need him. So we cannot, as a respectable and responsible professional body, we cannot afford not to apply decency, not to apply decorum and courtesy to those who are stakeholders. It's not only lawyers. All of Nigerians who look up to NBA for direction and guidance must be shown that there is a better way to do things. I believe we have learned lessons, and probably against the next conference, there should be much longer time to assemble and headhunt for speakers and do a background check and do a political assessment of the risk involved in whoever is being invited.
Well, what do you think of the suggestion by some commentators that in the future, perhaps the NBA is better off just holding a professional conference attended only by lawyers and not mix politics with, the affairs of the association? In other words, if you don't invite politicians or outsiders or non-lawyers, lawyers can just come together and talk to themselves at their conference and stay away from politics. What do you think of that suggestion?
Well, I'll say that it's a knee-jerk reaction to the unfortunate development. Going by international best practices, even at IBA, we don't hold conferences to speak with ourselves alone. We try to hear out other stakeholders and the general public that we serve to know the way their thinking is and in what area we can use their own interventions to better restructure and better organize ourselves, set agenda. The conference actually serves multi-purposes. First is for stock taking of the previous year. Second is to set agenda for the new year. And the third is continuing legal education apart from the social interaction values that we get. For instance, what happened this last conference about invitation and decision is something that can be learned from in any organization, not only lawyers, other professional bodies too will have picked one or two things that they can learn from the seeming missteps we made. Clearly, missteps were made, and it was too late in the day, and also not necessarily appropriate to have externalized those concerns. We could have managed it better diplomatically.
Well, let's talk about
so even at international conferences of NBA, we are allowed to come with even our spouses who are not lawyers. There are observers at conferences, and this is where the non-lawyers are accommodated so that we can get to have a feel of what they think about us and pick some of the ideas that have worked well in their own environment, ecosystem.
Well, let's talk about some of the takeaways. There was a keynote address by President Buhari at that conference, presented on his behalf by the Vice President. And two things that the President said in his speech with regard to the dispensation of justice. He recommended that criminal cases should not take more than 12 months from High Court to the Supreme Court, and that civil cases should not take more than 15 months to be determined. And he cited his experience at in the elections. 3 times he challenged the election, and it went on and on and on. But he said, well, for electoral matters, there has been an amendment of the process, and that when it was challenged by Atiku Abubakar in the 2019 general election, it took just 6 months, and that a similar step should be taken with regard to criminal and civil cases. Now, is that something that, the president can just decree or wish into existence? And don't you think that what he is recommending is already taken care of by the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which we seem to have implemented more in the breach?
I think Mr. President can be forgiven for the pious aspirational challenge thrown at lawyers. But the critical question to ask is, much as we will desire, and it's actually in our own interest, that cases last for as short a time as possible for lawyers so that we can move on and build up on our more income-generating portfolio. It is never in the interest of any lawyer to have a case pending in court ad infinitum. But we have to look at what are the resources required to achieve that kind of tall order. What personnel level of the court system do we need to have? And what framework, legal framework itself for conduct of cases must be in place before we can achieve that speed that the president has charged us to deliver. The truth of the matter is, as I speak, nominees for appointment to the Supreme Court are now up to 8. And if you recall, the last time the president swore in the new CJN, he charged the CJN to speed up the process of appointing the full complement of the Supreme Court, which is 21. I happen to know that as at last year, 4 additional members have been screened and recommended to Mr. President for appointment. Up to today, nothing has been done about that level, that recommendation. Another 4 have been screened and recommended for appointment, making 8 outstanding slots at the Supreme Court that are yet to be filled. If it takes Mr. President more than a whole year to take a decision on whether, don't forget, he still has to send the name to National Assembly for screening. And it's only after those nominees pass screening that the final appointment can be done. So it shows to you that it is not just a challenge for the NBA or for the judicial arm. All of us, all arms of government have a role to play to deliver on that very daunting challenge thrown by Mr. President. The first thing is I'll plead with my president to quickly act on the recommendations pending on his table of the 8 appointees to the Supreme Court. Now, beyond that, it is also practically impossible. I don't know anywhere in the world where courts can deliver judgment from trial to appellate system within a year in criminal matters. There's nowhere in the world where that has happened. And much as we will look at cutting down on the time it takes, if you look at the process, then you have a 3-month period to appeal from High Court to Court of Appeal, just to appeal, before the appeal itself is taken. By the time, if you spend 3 months minimum to do a trial, which I doubt is possible at the trial court, the aggrieved party has 3 months to appeal. And that's 6 months. The Court of Appeal, even though the time is not limited, with the best of speed, probably will need a whole year to conclude. And then you still have to appeal to Supreme Court with another 3 months period, or 90 days, as the case may be. That already taking you beyond 1 year. And then you go to Supreme Court, where cases that are being heard now are those that were entered at the Supreme Court in 2010, 2009, 2010, except for those special cases that have fast-track regulations guiding them, like election petitions, fundamental human rights, capital punishment offenses, and then EFCC, and then sexual offenses. When you take this portfolio out of the total docket of the Supreme Court, we are probably not scratching about 10% of cases at the Supreme Court, not talk of those at the High Court. I don't think for now, without addressing the infrastructural and structural as well as resource constraints, the idea of 1-year trial from High Court to Supreme Court is a feasible proposition. But we thank Mr. President for reminding us that it is the duty of lawyers to ensure that not only is justice done, but that justice is seen to have been done within reasonable time, which is what Section 36 of the Constitution has prescribed.
And that justice is not unnecessarily delayed. Now, the president raised 3 other issues.
Yes.
One, about technicality. Yes. He says he would like to see more common sense from the bench in terms of how cases are determined, rather than technicality, and that both lawyers and non-lawyers should see that justice is done. He also raised concern about the appointment of judges, that the appointment of judges is rather opaque. He would like greater emphasis on merit, and that, in fact, persons to be appointed to the bench should take exams. And then, of course, he complained also about multiple and conflicting court orders, which seems to be the pattern. What's your reaction to those 3 points raised in the president's address to the NBA?
to be fair to Mr. President, he has a very unanswerable point on the issue of technicalities. A number of us practitioners are getting disturbed by the extent to which technicality has seeped back into our justice education system. And the average person leaves the court unable to understand where some of the reasoning and the outcome of their disputes were derived from by the courts. Apart from that, technicality seems to provide an avenue for courts to quickly have a turnover of cases. Judges at the High Court are assessed by the number of their turnover, how many cases they handle. And once the case is concluded, whether on technical grounds or otherwise, it's deemed to be concluded. I think that should be de-emphasized, but that actually has nothing to do with the executive or the legislature. I think technicality is a judge-made impediment, and our justice system would fare better if the judiciary can have a sit-down and take a look at some of the very archaic considerations by which cases are terminated without going into the merit of them. For instance, this idea of jurisdiction being threshold and not being a matter to be determined at the end of the whole case. It's been addressed in criminal matters. It's been addressed in election matters. But in the generality of cases, a matter can get stranded at the level of challenge to jurisdiction before trial commences, and that may be fought up to Supreme Court. Secondly, you also look at the window for appeals. There is a need to abridge that window to ensure that only disputes of merit go up to Supreme Court that raise fundamental points of substance that deal with the right of parties. That will reduce the workload of their lordships, and it will also fast-track the turnaround time for cases to be decided. That's on technicality. The president has a valid point there. And both the petitioners and the judiciary and the justices must find a level at which you can interrogate that issue. At the NJI, National Judicial Institute, there is a need for us to create a special case study on the role of technicality in our justice administration, so that judges, through that continuing legal education avenue, may begin to reassess and review their attitude to how matters are determined. Then lawyers themselves must caution ourselves that we are becoming gradually irrelevant to the true need of the populace when we latch onto technicalities to hold on to a case and continue to have those matters languishing in court until they have lost even meaning. Supposing the party should win, it has no beneficial value. So that also is a point that we must take home for Mr. President. The other point about appointment is where I have my concern. If you look at the process by the Judicial Appointment Regulation of NJC, if we follow to the letter the provisions there, you will find out that even at the level of interview, the rigorousness of the process, the content of matters on which candidates are assessed, the recommendations, and even their own assessments, as well as their contribution to warrant their consideration for appointment. They are rigorous enough if you follow the process. I'm not sure that sitting for exam, if you are going to sit for exam to become a judge, apart from the normal interview, which some actually do some form of examination, but not in the form of sitting down and getting a certificate. The process is rigorous. The process is merit-driven. And if we have observed lacuna there, it's human intervention. That's the area we should address, especially because there's a political content to appointment. You've seen where even NJC, after they appoint somebody as CJ, a governor who has the final say refuses to swear in that CJ, purely for whatever, some other considerations. So if you look at it, I'm not sure we have problem with the process of appointment. I think most of the problem have to do with the political interference with the process, and also the seeming unattractiveness of appointment to the bench now because of the way the appointees are being treated. Their condition of service are not too attractive anymore, except for those who see it as a service to humanity. It's difficult to attract the best. The last appointment of judges in UK, when I look at the profile, out of about almost 90-something% of the appointees were first-class holders from 3 leading universities in the UK: Oxford, Cambridge, London School of Economics. I was shocked to see that, and most of them, I think about 90, were QCs, just for appointment to the High Court bench. So what makes that appointment attractive there? We should copy, we should look at it, review, and adapt some of them to attract the best to the bench. I think that rather is the best way to go, rather than thinking just a mere examination. Exam is actually not necessarily the true test of a candidate's suitability for appointment. What about fitness for purpose? What about integrity? What about sense of justice? What about the pedigree? All of these come together to make a wholesome judge. So examination for judges to be appointed is rather for now a red herring, knowing that the procedure we have presently is very robust, if only we apply the rules properly.
Well, the other point was about conflicting court orders. Quickly.
Yes. But for conflicting court orders, we have to appreciate the fact that at the appellate level in Nigeria, we have 2 tiers. And we have divisions of the Court of Appeal. We have judgments. High Court judgments conflicting is not a problem because a judgment of one High Court does not bind another judge. Each one approaches a case as he best understands and as presented to him. But when you get to the Court of Appeal, which is the intermediate court, we used to blame the problem of conflicting judgment on absence of efficient court judgment law report system. But we have migrated now, thankfully, to e-law reports, where we have a number of applications that enable people to process judgments, review them, critique them, and access them. I believe that that is something that we can address with case review initiatives. It used to be the case that controversial judgments in the past will attract commentaries from learned authors, university professors, and in future, some of them are revisited and corrected. But we don't see much of that from academia. For us who are practitioners, ours is simply to apply the law as we find it and then persuade the court. The academics are entitled to express academic opinion, to critique judgment, and make suggestions for review. We are not allowed to do much of that when we are arguing cases before the court, because the court is guided by law as it is, not law as it ought to be. So I would challenge the academic branch of our practice, from whom we also draw some of our senior advocates now, to take up the challenge seriously. Let us have more, a more resourceful output from the faculties of law, looking at our decisions and then giving us alternative views that future cases might present occasion to apply. Beyond that, as practitioners too, I think there's also an issue of ethics. We will see counsel being aware that a judgment is not one-sided. There are several options. What the law allows us to do is to bring the various perspectives to the attention of the court and try to persuade the court to choose which one we think best serves justice. But some of our colleagues these days, they just do a tunnel vision advocacy. They assemble all the cases that support their own case, push them before the judge, who is under pressure to deliver judgment within a short time, without necessarily adverting the court's attention to the alternative perspectives that can make for a holistic decision. So we too should take part of the blame. Finally, I also believe that the justices themselves at this stage must appreciate that the public is now more, we used to call ourselves learned to the exclusion of other members of the public. I don't think we are on a firm ground to continue to say that. We know of clients now who go and buy law report on their own. And by the time you prepare opinion for them, they point to you that they've seen another authority contrary to what you are saying. So the court should please assist us to, yes, it's happening these days. Some of them go as far as Supreme Court to go and argue their cases. Exactly. So they invest in some of these things on their own, and they have second opinion from even retired judges who can do consultancy. So it's becoming a big task for us to streamline our education system and make it more predictable so that there is certainty in the law.
Well, thank you very much.
The President has a good point on that as well.
Yes, thank you, ABIODUN, SAN, for this brilliant review of the 60th Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association and some of the issues. And you're absolutely right. Olumide Akpata and his ESCO, the new ESCO of the NBA, they have their job properly cut out for them. I will keep an eye on developments as they settle down into the office. Thank you very much, AJ OWONIKOKO, SAN. It's time now for a break here on Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Joining me now in the studio, I have Professor BOLA AKINTERINWA, Director General, Bolytag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. YEMI ADAMOLEKUN, Executive Director, Enough is Enough, and Chike Ogea, former Commissioner for Information, Delta State. Well, Prof. YEMI and Chike, you listen to AJ OWONIKOKO, SAN, helping us to do a review of the 60th Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association and some of the developments with the emergence, particularly, of an MBA of Northern extraction that is now called the New Nigerian MBA. Yemi, you were part of that conference as a non-lawyer, one of the non-lawyers who participated. What's your own take as someone who participated in the conference with regard to rule of law and, you know, the first virtual conference of the MBA?
I think that was an excellent conference in terms of setting the tone for what is now possible in our new normal. I think they said they had, I don't know, 20,000 plus people who registered to participate. So a combination of joining via Zoom or on YouTube. So I think I will give kudos to the NBA for putting that forward. And hopefully it would also reduce costs associated with conferences in the future. Obviously, technical issues with such a conference, but at least I think they managed it relatively well. The panel that El-Rufai was invited to, Malam El-Rufai was invited to, was the one on who is a Nigerian. I participated in part of, listened in on part of that panel. I'd been invited to moderate, which I declined. But I think the conversation was interesting. I had Dr. Obi Ezekwesili and a few others as part of the panel. What was also interesting, just to note on the conference as a highlight, was the fact that there was a big ruckus with Malam El-Rufai's invitation. He was disinvited. Then people now started talking about former President Obasanjo as well as Governor Wike. Neither one of them attended. Governor Wike sent his Attorney General, or not sent, his Attorney General represented him on the panels where he would have spoken. And former President Obasanjo didn't show up for the rule of law panel, which I thought was interesting. So I thought, honestly, I don't know why neither one of them showed up. But for me, I thought it was a very interesting and I'd dare say apt response to public outcry for them being invited. So I don't know what happened backstage or behind the scenes, but I would definitely like to commend both of them, quite frankly, for not showing up at the NBA conference. And lastly, on the point you asked about President Buhari's comments, yeah, definitely lead by example. You can't have appointed or cleared 8 Supreme Court justices and not have cleared them for the National Assembly to swear them in. That's number one. And number two, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, while he was speaking, talked about how the rule of law is very important and how it must be obeyed. And I thought that was quite ironic because the federal government of Nigeria is one of the biggest culprits of not obeying the rule of law. So for him to sit at a bar conference to make that statement, I thought was quite funny. And I had fun writing it in the chat box that it would be good for the federal government to lead by example. But, I mean, kudos to the NBA for the virtual conference, but they have, as you said, this new breakout on their hands. And I don't see it as a breakout. I mean, you have Christian Lawyers Association of Nigeria, you have Muslim Lawyers Association of Nigeria. So if there wants to be a Northern Members Association of Lawyers of Nigeria, hey, maybe the Southerners will do their own shortly.
Well, Chike, let me come to you. I mean, this is a matter of particular interest to you. The NBA is divided. What's your take on this? Do you think it will stand or this will go away? And then some of the points raised by AJ OWONIKOKO, SAN, with regard to the administration of justice delayed, and what can be done to fast-track the determination of cases.
Well, thank you, Ruben. Please, Yemi, we don't want a fragmented bar, please. so there's no need for that. Well, if you recall, my submissions, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago when we took this NBA crisis that was brewing at the time, I did say that, and all those submissions I made remain valid, that we should move away from the political sphere and so that we can avoid this kind of controversy. I said the invitation and disinvitation of the governor of Kaduna State was unnecessary. I said we could concentrate more on getting, there were international figures there. I saw Tony Blair and a few others. Yes, you can get people like that you want to learn from their own experiences. And even here in Nigeria, we can get non-controversial figures in different aspects of society that can also add value to what we're trying to engage with. I just thought that what should be avoided is a toxic political space that is quick to run into ethnic and religious sentiments to further polarize and divide us, as a country. But just like OWONIKOKO said, these are things that will happen. It's something that is developing. It's something that should be managed. The new ESCO is coming in, and I expect them to be able to pull the bar together in the oneness it should have, in the unity of purpose of the bar. Because really, as a lawyer, as a learned person, we shouldn't have time for this kind of pettiness, so to speak. And like he said, the Legal Practitioners Act, the Nigerian Constitution, they all respect just one bar conference, and I don't think there's any room for this kind of polarization or splinter groups that are coming in. I just think we should be more forthright in our engagements with ourselves. We have to be even-handed in everything we do so that some people don't feel shortchanged in any way, because it is when that happens that you see this kind of thing, people start coming up and talking about, we want to break away or we don't want to break away.
Well, Prof, quickly, you also listened to AJ OWONIKOKO.
Yes, first of all, I like his name, OWONIKOKO. But I want to look at it not from money being the essential thing, that Otito Nikoko, that is, the truth should be the bottom line. OWONIKOKO told us the bitter truth analytically, and I like it. But I disagree with some of his points. One, he did say that the NBA has not managed well its diversity. I do not share his view, particularly on this particular question of conference. The new Nigerian Bar Association is nothing more than an addition to the killing of Nigeria softly. They are all killing Nigeria softly. Why will a disagreement on inviting or disinviting El-Rufai be a pretext to go and establish a new bar association? The information given to us as educated people is simply that El-Rufai has not been complying with many court orders, that he does not actually reflect any belief in rule of law. So if OWONIKOKO is telling us now that managing diversity is the problem, no. If you are saying that El-Rufai is coming to educate the learned people, I would say there's nothing, absolutely nothing to learn from somebody who does not believe, who does not respect rule of law. So is he going to educate you on how better to continue with not respecting rule of law? The NBA, those who, Professor Odinka, who initiated Odinkalu. Now, he was very correct. He drew attention to the fact that the values, the motto of the NBA require that they bring speakers who will assist to further promote what the association stands for. So if it is believed, and democratically too, everybody voted. That's why I take my departure from OWONIKOKO as well. The organizing committee thought that he would be good. But the generality of the lawyers say no. That is democracy. He pointed that one out, and I agree at that level too. Finally, quickly, you see, I cannot understand how a group of people will now want to establish another NBA. OWONIKOKO rightly pointed out that the CAC, Corporate Affairs Commission, is not likely to recognize that one because you can't have two, you can only have one. So I substantially agree with him, and the new National Bar Association should stop disuniting the country.
Well, let's take another topic quickly. President Buhari on Tuesday listed 9 areas his administration will prioritize during his remaining years in office. He listed those priority areas to include improvement of access to quality education, healthcare, power supply, poverty reduction. According to a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, the president spoke while receiving letters of credence from ambassadors and high commissioners of 8 countries at the presidential villa, Abuja. The statement was titled, President Buhari lists 9 priority areas to improve livelihood of Nigerians. Additional quoted the president as saying that efforts were being made to sustain Nigeria's position as a profitable investment destination with unequaled incentives in all sectors, especially large market and flexible tax system, which investors from various countries can take advantage of. President Buhari said, and I quote, in our efforts to achieve a realistic domestic and foreign policy, as well as national development, we've identified the following 9 priority areas to guide our policy directions over the next few years. Build a thriving and sustainable economy, enhance social inclusion and reduce poverty, engage agricultural output for food security and export, attain energy sufficiency in power and petroleum products, and expand transport and other infrastructure development. He also noted to expand business growth, entrepreneurship and industrialization, expand access to quality education, affordable health care, and productivity of Nigerians, and build a system to fight corruption, improve governance, and create social cohesion, and improve security for all, unquote. Chike, let me start with you. What's new? 9 priority areas, just 3 years to the end of the administration, and just about 2 years to the commencement of political activities for the 2023 general election. What do you think?
Well, this goes back to what we have suffered in the country over the years, because we have done away with all kinds of rolling plans and short, medium, and long-term plans that ought to be entrenched in the country and in the system. And what you get is this kind of knee-jerk arrangement from different governments. When they come, they tell you what they want to do. Most of the time, they are far off the mark, and they realize time is running out, and then they realize that they have to, to another path. Nigeria has not benefited from that, and that is why we have the issues we have in every sphere of our national life today, whether it's in the area of healthcare. COVID-19 has exposed us so terribly, but we thank God, because I personally believe that, like the old adage says, the old native adage, that the cow that has no tail, it's God that drives away the flies. And I think this has to do with maybe over the years, our body metabolism and the way we have adapted to the different kinds of quinine and all of that. Otherwise, don't forget, Africa was meant to be littered with bodies right now, but we didn't see that. We didn't have the healthcare to cope with that. I mean, poverty has never been more. Power is miserable. Access to water, access to education. In all the Human Development Index, we have done very badly. But if you ask me, the little light at the tunnel is that at least the government realizes that they have just this short time. And as far as I'm concerned, this is an end-of-term program or plan that the president has just enunciated. And it gives us a thinking into what they think they can achieve between now and when their term comes to an end. Because like we all know, the last year of any political government is usually done with politicking, and there are very few issues of governance that's going to be, taken care of. So all in all, maybe this is the time when this government, before they go away, they should institute back into the National Planning Commission, make it into that, because I was there and I understand this, make it into that planning hub. It is meant to be the engine room of government, where all kinds of plans are domiciled, whether it is a long term, whether it's a medium term, or whether it's a short term. And that way you can chalk away on the things you have done, and you can generally have a plan. You can't be, even, in aviation, you can't want to be going to Kaduna. You must have a flight plan. Otherwise, you end up in Port Harcourt, or you might end up in a crash. So those are the things I see there. It's really nothing new. And I pray we're able to achieve some of these things, because in this last administration, with the kind of very toxic politics we've played, all attention has been more on politics than anything else. And we spend so much of our scarce resources doing that.
Well, Prof, quickly.
You see, I am surprised that Mr. President, our own president, will be telling us about 9 areas, and that you two, you'll be talking about newness or what is not new. The whole 9-point agenda, they border essentially on only one, socio-economic. What is power supply? What is poverty reduction?
What is education?
Now, what is enhancing, expanding agriculture, all those things? Virtually all the 9 areas, they are essentially socio-economic, nothing more than that. So we don't have 9. My surprise again is at the level that even if we admit that these are 9 areas broken down, that is sub-issues, sub-themes of the socio-economic agenda, where is economy? Where is security? Is security no longer a priority?
It's there. It's part of his list.
No, but you say, look, priority.
It's there.
He told us in the beginning is economy, revamping the economy, ensuring security, and fighting corruption. But when you now say priority, that means this is what you will now devote most and more important attention to. It's not there. And I think that, honestly, when we are told now that, okay, you now want to focus on realistic foreign policy, are you now telling us that up to now, your foreign policy has not been realistic? We have been complaining about all this, that Nigeria's foreign policy doesn't have any focus. So if he wants to now use the rest of his time to look at these issues, let's give him a trial. Let's give him that support.
Well, let's just take one more comment, and I will come to you, Yemi, to wrap it up for us. Nigerian government postponed the resumption of international flights, earlier scheduled to commence August 29th to September the 5th. The Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, Musa Shaibu Nuhu, disclosed this at the ongoing Presidential Task Force COVID-19 briefing in Abuja. Nuhu said airlines and airports were ready to operate. Other non-aviation logistics prompted the 1-week extension. Yemi,
quickly,
what's your reaction to this?
On the president's one, actually, more importantly for me, political activities have already started, so that's there. You've gone for 3 things that you haven't accomplished in 5 years to now wanting to do 9 in 3 years, which I find very interesting. And the period that COVID provided to actually prioritize some of these issues, we've lost it. Education, private schools are open. We're still dilly-dallying with our public schools. Healthcare, I haven't seen anything that COVID has sent beyond, I mean, we've built labs and all of that, but in terms of fundamentally changing the structure for healthcare, haven't done that. Security has gotten worse, and he refuses to fire the service chiefs who are obviously not doing anything. So this whole thing, and then corruption, we watched in living color as NDDC told us how they're stealing money, and nothing has happened. So I think this 9th thing is really quite a joke, especially since politics has started. And on the airline, I think better safe than sorry. So if they felt NCA feels they need another week to get ready, we're here.
Well, Chike Aviation, You guys are not ready. You've moved the goalpost.
Yeah, no. Aviation is all about safety, Ruben. And like they say, nemo dat quod non habet. The matter speaks for itself. If we are not ready, and like they said, these are things that are on the ground. They are mostly COVID-19 protocols, and we need an extra 1 week to sort it all out and make sure people are safe. Because don't forget, resumptions of flight is going to come in with its own attendant risk. I think that is fine. There's no problem about that.
Well, Prof, you have a word.
I will simply remind you of what Captain Fola Akinpotu told us last week.
Yep.
You asked the question and he responded. The federal government of Nigeria did not say we'll reopen on
August 29.
But from.
That's what he said.
And in this case,
It is from.
there's no reason why we should be faulting the government. I think it's perfectly in order.
Yes.
Safety, like our Honorable Commissioner Shike said,
It's key.
if they are looking for safety, fantastic. But at the level of reciprocity, I think we should be very careful in applying the principle, especially when our aircraft will be flown abroad for check D or C check, all those things.
Yes.
They will seize the opportunity to retaliate. If you don't have the means to retaliate, please
Stay home.
stay home.
Well, but as you said, it's about safety. And we should probably stay away from high-risk countries in order to protect international passengers. Well, thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, Yemi, and thank you very much, Chike. You've been watching Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From our entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. See you next Sunday.